Moni, who is the final person for tonight? Who am I waiting on? For those of you that that obviously have asked your questions, we'll be back next week answering questions once again. But we do keep this for about 2 hours, and we're already 2 hours and 20 minutes. So, yeah. Chiwu, you are muted at the minute. I have unmuted you from the server side. There we go.
Hello?
Chiwu, how are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you.
Very happy to hear that.
What
What
are
is your
thoughts
question?
on how long have we been away in Shadowlands for Azeroth to reawaken?
Yeah. Sorry, can
Any
you
thoughts?
repeat? Can you repeat your question?
Thoughts on how long we have been away in Shadowlands for Azeroth to reawaken?
All right. So there. Okay. Blizzard already answered that, so it's not really my thoughts on it. Literally the same amount of time. So we spent 2 years in the Shadowlands, and we've been away for 2 years. Time is not different in the Shadowlands. It ultimately boils down, from what I can tell, Blizzard couldn't figure it out themselves. So Ian, right at the beginning, before Shadowlands launched at BlizzCon, said that time works differently in the Shadowlands. He then corrected himself and said, well, he should correct himself and say that time doesn't work differently. So it's not like the Twisting Nether, but time is sort of like a dream in the Shadowlands, which still was very confusing, because in a dream, you know, it can be 7 seconds, but it feels like it's days, right? So time can be very weird in a dream, so it still opens that door for massive time skip at the end of the expansion. And then now finally, in an interview, they came out and said, no, time in the Shadowlands is exactly a minute in the Shadowlands is a minute on Azeroth. There's no difference. So once we leave the Shadowlands, we are still at the same time. Like, we're now just 2 years later back on Azeroth. Everything is still the same way. Time didn't move faster or slower, you know, so it is linear. It's still the same thing. So sadly, our dreams of a time skip, or maybe even a time reversal, is not happening, at least not right now. Unless, of course, Blizzard is saying that as a way to not give away what they have planned. That is entirely possible. So it could be that we get into, or we leave the Shadowlands to go back to Azeroth, and suddenly there's a cinematic that plays that says 200 years later, right? That is possible. It could happen. But I'm not holding my breath right now for that. Sadly, yeah, I'm with you guys. I wish we could get a time skip. I don't think I'm alone in wanting a time skip. It would be so much fucking cooler if there was one, but I don't see Blizzard adding one, sadly.
So my follow-up question would be, since Anduin was a big part of Shadowlands, what are your thoughts on his direction going forwards in Dragonflight?
The last time we saw Anduin, he was sort of not ready to leave, I believe. I haven't played 9.2, so I don't know exactly what happened there, but Anduin wasn't quite ready yet to leave. I do think Anduin is going to struggle with a lot of questions after what has happened to him. I think there's a lot that Sylvanas did, but also a lot that Zuvul did that is probably going to weigh very heavily on Anduin. And you could even say that there might be truths to Sylvanas and Zuvul's plans that is going to stick with Anduin. You know, things that Anduin is going to look at and be like, I didn't agree with how they went about it, but I can see why they did it. So I do think we're going to get a much more mature Anduin, perhaps even eventually, not right now. I think the first moments of Anduin's story going into Dragonflight is going to be that of turmoil. It's going to be tumultuous for him. He is probably going to question himself, second guess himself, try to make sense of everything that had happened to him. But as time goes on, I think we are going to get a lot more of a determined Anduin. You know, an Anduin that has been through so much and have finally made up his mind as to who he believes he needs to be. But never forget the void corruption Anduin has. That we still don't know what's going to happen with that. That has to sort of veer its head at some point in the expansion, or one of these expansions. But I'm excited for the Anduin story. I would have been more excited if it turned out that Anduin actually made the decision willingly to help Zuval and Sylvanas. That would have been a much more exciting story for me, because that gives a lot of flavor to Anduin's character. Because right now, I'm going to be honest with you, I hate Anduin as a character. Anduin is the quintessential good boy. You know, he's that good boy that gets straight A's, never upsets his parents, doesn't go out drinking with his friends. You know, him and his girlfriend are waiting for marriage before they'll have sex. He's just everything that is good and pure in the world. And there is nothing more boring than good and pure. What you want from a hero is that sort of broken nature, you know, that Rathian is a good example of this. He is the hero more often than he isn't, but he is also very selfish, and you have to watch your back, because he's got flaws, and those flaws can very oftentimes be your downfall if you don't worry about it. So I really hope that they do something to darken Anduin's character just a little bit, because him being this goody two-shoes, it's just ruining him as a character, man. Just absolutely ruining him right now for me. Was there anything you wanted to add, Chuhu, or?
I was wondering about the comic that came out years ago about Anduin and the
Army of Light
and where Velen. Yeah.
I believe Blizzard at some point said that is no longer canon, but I could be wrong. I kind of remember either Denuzer or Ian saying that is no longer a canonical view. So Chris Mason and Alexa Frigiabi had that as canon. So Anduin would eventually join the Army of Light. But I want to say that at some point that was changed, either by Denuzer or Ian. One of them said that it is no longer canonical. So it's not necessarily that Anduin is going to walk that path. I mean, I can literally tell you how Anduin would get there, if I'm wrong, because I could be wrong. You know, I can't remember everything that I read and everything, like where it comes from, or it could be that I read a theory of someone saying that what if it isn't canonical, and I just sort of remember it as them confirming it isn't. So I don't take my word for this, because I could absolutely be wrong. But let's imagine that it is canonical, then the story for Anduin has to go something like he falls to the void, becomes this sort of bad guy, void-infected shadow priest that just leads the armies of Azeroth, you know, the void armies of Azeroth against the mortal races. The light eventually steps in. You know, him and Tyrallion have this epic face-off, because Tyrallion is at the head of the Army of the Light, and they are tyrannically marching across Azeroth. And Anduin either defeats Tyrallion, or Tyrallion defeats Anduin. And it is in that moment that Anduin eventually sides with the Light. But it has to be this sort of first downfall, and then a rising from the ashes, so to speak. Sort of bringing in a new era. Because remember, the version of the Light that we know through Alternative Draenor is not necessarily the Army of the Light that Anduin will join. So the Army of the Light that Anduin will join isn't necessarily that tyrannical, sort of our way or the highway kind of Army of the Light. So the Army of the Light itself will need to undergo quite a lot of changes for Anduin to join, I believe. I don't think Anduin would join the Army of the Light on Alternative Draenor.
That's all. Thank you for your time.
It's my absolute pleasure.
And I love the work, man. Keep it up.
Juhu, thank you very much. I'd really appreciate your question. Take care of yourself. And then, of course, to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming out on this Monday evening. It is an absolute pleasure to hang out with all of you. Really enjoy these. I will be back next week with another Q&A. Same time, same place as always. So remember to join the Discord. Ask your questions in the Q&A. Get your rank or your position in the queue so that we're ready for next week. For those of you that want to follow me over on Twitch, please remember to hit the link in the description down below. I will be live tomorrow night once again over on Twitch, where we will be continuing our Final Fantasy XIV adventures. We have freed Doma. We, of course, now have to free Al Amigo. And I'm not entirely sure how the fuck we're going to do that, but I'm looking forward to it, to say the very least. Normally, I would go live on Twitch right now as, just sort of to go hang out. But because it is a bank holiday here in South Africa, I want to go spend some time with family. We're going to go to the beach probably. So, just going to go hang out for a bit before everyone returns to work again tomorrow. So I will see all of you tomorrow back here, same time, basically same time as when we start the streams on YouTube.